From the beginning, they were clear they wanted a really green project, and we had to discover what that meant to them. What does that mean for this town to be green? Because it means different things to different people. I mean, sometimes it's recycling, sometimes it's energy efficiency, and all those things are important to this town, but I think the things that were important to this town was how do you make a town center that really feels like it's part of this valley. I mean, this is an incredible valley. To make it feel part of it, almost like it came out of the landscape in some way. And we learned early on that the landscape was probably more important to this town than the buildings. So we had to design buildings that we thought would work for them, were beautiful buildings, but were subservient to the landscape in some way. The other thing besides where the buildings went was what the feeling of the building would be along Portola Road. And one of the things we wanted to do was sort of wrap a big sweep of sort of native open space around the front of the site. There's still a parking lot in front of the old schoolhouse, but aside from that, it's all not only no buildings, but no non-native landscapes along. So it's all native landscape along there. You're always going to harvest resources and use water and energy, but if you can use it in a more of a cyclical way, the way nature uses it, where you use it and recycle it and put it back into the ecosystem and use it again, that's really the goal, is to try and have right now our projects, most buildings, most cities are sort of designed linearly. You build them, you use them for a while, they use a lot of energy, and then you throw them away. And it's clear we can't keep doing that forever. And we can't even keep doing it very much longer. So, so it means, in general terms, that's what it means. Specifically, it means really low energy buildings. And the energy that you do use, hopefully, is coming from renewable resources like photovoltaic panels and things like that. You use very durable materials very efficiently, so you don't use a lot of materials and resources. The ones you do use are either recycled or reclaimed. We're using a lot of reclaimed wood from the old school buildings. Some of the other wood we're using is harvested in ways that it's certified to be from a well-managed forest, which means that instead of, there's no clear cutting involved in it, you're harvesting from forest in a way that can be sustained over hundreds of years, which is how we have to start harvesting our forests. So it's looking at all those things. Water use is another big thing. We're trying to make these very low water use buildings and try to make the landscape low water use as well. So, you know, we just have to start using a lot less than we've been using and doing a smarter job of it. The approach we'd like to take is what's essentially called passive design, where you try and do as little as possible with mechanical systems. You try and do as much as possible just with the building itself, just by orienting it right, putting the shading in the right place. That cuts the energy way down, and then when you need a little bit of mechanical engineering, it's very small at that point. We do a lot of site analysis. We look at wind. We look at a solar viewer that actually looks at your shade patterns over your site to know how much sun and shade you're going to have over your roofs and things like that. So there's a lot of analysis that goes into that. And then the other piece to this building, it turns out that buildings like this that are not houses, which are used a lot at night, but used during the day, is that air conditioning is a bigger energy hog than heating on a yearly basis. So keeping the buildings cool is important. So you want the views, you want glass, but you also need to shade that glass from the sun, otherwise it overheats the building. So there's a lot of wood screens built into this building that keep the sun off the glass and still let you see filtered views through it. So there was a lot of, and then things like natural daylight, letting light into the building, so you'd have to turn the lights on. The energy modeling that we did not just included energy use, it included temperature profiles inside the buildings. The predictions showed that none of the buildings, even with over 100-degree temperatures, would get above about 84 degrees for just a brief period of time. You know, so the question and we even looked at ways to address that. There are ways to actually bring in portable evaporative coolers on really, if you have a really prolonged hot spell, you can bring the temperature down more. But what we do is we design the building, we run it through the energy model and temperature model, and then we see what the results are. And we found some of the rooms were too hot. So then we looked at either taking out some glass, adding more insulation, or in some cases adding thermal mass inside that room. So we absorb the heat during the day, we let it off at night, we cool the mass down at night. So there's a lot of it's more sophisticated actually to design a passive building, because you have to juggle all these different things and make them all come out right. Or with a big air conditioning system, you just turn it on.
So the major green things we're doing right now is that pile of sand, a pile of grindings, and there's some piles over here. It's just being able to reuse that stuff and not truck it. trucking is, you know, and saving of diesel.
Well, I was going to say the fuel costs have to be horrendous.
Well, it's also, you know, polluting the environment.
What and what would you do with the stuff?
They would just all haul it down to on Seaport. There's a recycling plant for concrete in Redwood City. No, in Redwood City.
No, I know, but near Malibu,
Yeah. There's a big grinding plant. But to take all that out, it's like 188 trucks. All the stuff we took from the old buildings to take it out, 188 trucks, because it doesn't break into what it's supposed to break. They don't break it into small chunks. It's big chunks and it takes up a lot of room. All this asphalt will be ground up just like the other asphalt.
How do you grind it up?
They have a big machine that comes out with 4 wheels. To do this, they have a machine that has like a heavy-duty rotor tiller thing. I mean, it's a heavy-duty machine. And it just grinds up the asphalt and the base rock. It'll drive back and forth, and it just pulverizes it in place. And then we stockpile, like we stockpiled that big pile there. We can use it for base rock underneath the asphalt too. And it's getting the soils engineer to buy into all that.
But now again, this is part of the theme of being green.
Well, it's not only that, it's a big cost savings. I always try and do that, but when you have a town that wants to do everything green, then everybody's on board with what you're doing. A lot of these logs here, we're going to try and reuse for benches at the, or certain pieces of the playground. There's an Argus, playground Argus that's involved. We may take some of these and make benches out of them for little kids to sit on. We're trying to use them, so we've saved them. So this is the ground concrete from the buildings.
So let me get this straight. So this pile of dirt, essentially.
Well, it's class 2 base. We call it class 2 base rock.
This class 2 base rock. This was the town. This is the old town center.
The footings for the old town center.
This is the footings. Okay.
And this is, so we've already used 500 tons underneath the asphalt. We've also used quite a bit of it for backfill inside the building pad. So this is where we actually had a pretty good size cost savings. Doing all the calculations myself, I think it was they really made some money by doing it this way. Not having to offload and bring in new base rock.